Hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, discussing 5 different SEO strategies for optimizing your e-commerce store. Want to do a quick mic check to make sure you can hear me okay and you can see the presentation up on the screen. If you can just give us a quick thumbs up or a note in the little questions box, that would be helpful for us. And we'll dive right into the content here. Great. Thank you, Christopher, Ken, Tony. Thank you, guys. Let's go ahead and we'll jump in and introduce the two of us today that are giving you some content. I am Russ Jeffrey. I'm the Director of Strategic Integrations at Duda. I've been here for about 8.5 years, so I know the organization, I know the company. You're lucky that both Chris and I are here. SEO is kind of like a passion of love for both of us, a kind of a side knowledge that we learn and keep ourselves up to date on. And so we're very happy to kind of share some of this information with you guys and present. Chris, do you want to give yourself a quick introduction for the folks here?
Yeah, hey everybody, Chris Carfey. I head up content and product marketing here at Duda. As Russ mentioned, this area of content and SEO is something I've been spending a lot of time working on. I've been with Duda since the beginning of the year, and prior to that, headed up content and community globally for GoDaddy for about 6 years. So thanks for taking time out of your day, and really looking forward to connecting with everybody over the next hour or so on the topic of SEO.
Great. Jumping into our agenda today, we have 5 topics here related to keywords and research, talking about other locations of doing SEO, talking about the on-site search and that aspect for SEO optimization. We have some best practices that we would like to have you guys follow. And then the final one is measuring success. Just a quick, and at the end, we will have time for Q&A. So if you put questions in the questions box, we will be able to answer those towards the end. We also do have 2 colleagues, Brandon and Ryan, who are answering questions as well in there, if you have something in the meantime. We are recording this, and we will be sending around a recording after as well. So for folks who join late or don't hear this, you will be getting a recording of this after the fact. With that being said, let's dive into our first topic today, which is coming up with keywords and doing that across the entire website and how to do that type of research directly. So you'll notice here we have 3 different topics on the page. One is finding the product keywords and finding kind of the strategy and thought process behind getting into those. We then talk about the actual implementation on either category pages or on the individual product pages. This is a little bit of an oversimplification, but generally in an e-commerce store, you have 2 primary types of pages. One is a product page and another is a category page. And so we talk about the strategies kind of for each of these. But diving into really finding the right product keywords, what we want to highlight here is doing keyword research is going to be a critical component for optimizing your site for discoverability online. And one of the things we really like to highlight is that it's really important to use the different tools out there. And we have a list here of different tools that are available to find these types of content. Often, once you start doing keyword research, you find that some of the keywords you thought that people would be searching for your business are not actually the ones that people are searching for online. I have a personal example of this where I have helped my parents set up and run their e-commerce store. They have a business where they make recycled Zen bells. So they have, online, they wanted to go and sell and make these products searchable and findable online and have people be able to check out through the website. And when we started digging in and using some of these tools, one of the big examples we found was that people did not search for Zen bells very often. Actually, the more common query that people searched for was actually meditation bells. And so we saw this, it was actually in Google Ads Keyword Planner, where we saw that they had something like 7 to 8 times more monthly searches than Zenbell. That told us that we need to be optimizing almost every one of our products and every one of our category pages for that example. We wouldn't have known that unless we went and did the keyword research to figure out what people are actually searching for and go through that thought process of optimizing for these different keywords. So that process really should be done for a lot of your primary pieces of content and, or sorry, not content, a lot of your primary products that you have on the store and also categories that exist as well. Chris, I know you want to jump in and talk about some of the different tools and also some other factors that you should really consider.
Yeah, absolutely. The doing of the research is super important, and doing it down, to a category level and to a product level, as Russ was talking about, is absolutely critical. And there are a lot of different ways you can do this. You don't need to spend a ton of money in order to do this. It will take a little bit of time, but going in and, if you do have a paid tool like Moz or Ahrefs, those are super useful as well. Google Trends is another really powerful tool in the toolbox. You can go to trends.google.com, and in Russ's example, if one typed in meditation bells and then compared it to Zen bells, you would see the relative search volumes over time on those terms. You can also get a really good idea as to what are the up and coming terms that are coming out there. Actually, I just signed up for a newsletter called Exploding Topics that launched within the last 6 months or so, and just once a week they'll send out, here are a list of things that seem to be catching some traction out there, and their search volumes are going up very rapidly, and it's another good way to look at that. And you really want to look at the amount of search volume you have. The other thing that you want to do is definitely understand what's the level of competition for those same terms. So again, something like Ahrefs is really good for that. You can even get a tool like Keywords Everywhere, which is a Chrome browser extension, and it costs, I don't know, it's like $10 or something like that. But it'll show you the relative amount of search volume, but it'll also show you how difficult it is, or how likely difficult it is to rank for those terms. And if you can find things that are really sitting at that sweet spot of a moderate to a high amount of search volume and not super high competition, those are definitely the things that you want to try and optimize for. Also, just go into an incognito window and type in the term that you're hoping your customers are searching on, and see what the results are looking like. Go in and actually look at how the competitors are setting their pages up and the types of terms and language that they are using for those things that are on that first page of the Google SERP.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, definitely kind of echoing the same thing with Google Trends, and really looking at that is a great source to understand, what is the most important, what are things I should prioritize for as well. One thing that we didn't mention, and it's actually a new tool from Google, is this Rising Retail Report. This was released, I want to say, a week or two ago from Google, and it really shows a lot of what Google sees as the trends that are increasing or decreasing in the product and retail space. You can't really use this to search, but it's still interesting to see where things are going directionally in terms of ups and downs across the board. So you see a lot of things related to COVID and products that help deal with COVID in some way are obviously rising quite a lot right now in relationship to that. Jumping on to the next topic here, category pages. Category pages, you will use some of these strategies to find keywords, but you want to think about category pages a little bit different than you do product pages. Category pages should be an introduction to that category, to the information related to it. And so you want to make sure that you describe on that page things like how this product is used, what are the different possibilities and variations of this product. You want to make sure you flesh out a lot of that information to provide the context that's related to it. Category pages are very important on e-commerce websites because they are what drive people deeper into the actual product pages. Often category pages rank in more organic search or non-product focused searches as an area that will bring people into the site as an overall kind of introduction to a specific area. And they can dive deeper into, okay, I have, in my example of Zen bells, we would have a page just discussing either Zen bells or meditation bells, and then have many different options related to that of size and how they sound and the duration of the sound that they make, things like this that were important for that people wanted to know more is what we place on the category pages.
Yeah, those are the things that really give people the understanding of the breadth of offerings that you have in your site as well. So if somebody has a really specific search, they may end up on a particular product page. But if they're a little bit earlier in their journey, if they are just exploring things, maybe trying to get some ideas and inspiration, they'll end up on that category page. And also, it is a great way to merchandise and show all of the different types of related, sometimes similar, sometimes complementary types of offerings that you have as well. And so the category page is definitely something that requires the same level of thought that the individual product pages themselves do. It serves a little bit of a different purpose, though. It's really there for inspiration, a little bit of education as well, and also to really show that breadth of offerings that you may have.
Absolutely. Our final topic here under keyword and research is just optimizing for the individual product pages. Product pages you are a little simpler, I guess I would say, in relation to the category pages, because you have one thing that you can focus on. And what's really important though is that you provide the real comprehensive information about that product. So making sure that you have full descriptions and full keywords are really important, and you're integrating those keywords that you found onto the actual page. And what that means is, great, if I'm taking my meditation bell example, I'm using the meditation bell in the URL slug, I'm using that in the product title, I'm using it once or twice in the description of the product itself to help flesh out of what it is and how it's used, and providing more information around the background to that. So product pages, you just want to make sure that you're optimizing there directly for those keywords, and you're only finding one or two that you're really focusing on.
Yeah, and there are a lot of sort of subtle aspects on the product pages that you should think about as well. Things like the actual URL that you are going to use, and that is, the URL, the title, making sure that you do have, as Russ noted, the comprehensive description of the product, getting into the details. A lot of searchers will be looking for those types of things, and if it is those traits of the product, not just the the more descriptive type of text, but also the details, the feeds and speeds and specifications and such. People might be searching for a 50-inch versus a 52-inch television or things like that. And so making sure that those things are in there as well, because those will help you rank in search if people are getting to that level. And the things like the product slug, as Russ was alluding to, really important as well, because that URL is one of the things that Google definitely looks at and sort of uses to try and figure out what any given page is about, and can really help you make sure that you're addressing and answering the question for the right audience.
Absolutely. So those are some strategies of finding keywords and optimizing for that. We do also want to talk about places other than Google and other locations online. And we use the term SEO is more than Google. And when we say that, you need to think about other places people are searching online directly. So today in the US, folks that 50% of product searches, these are things I'm searching for a specific product. With today, things like hair clippers are very popular. So I'm searching directly on Amazon for hair clippers. Over 50% of those start on Amazon today in the US. That's a huge area where less than 22% of those actually start on Google. And so being in some of these other channels of places like Etsy or eBay or some of these other marketplaces can provide a whole lot more eyeballs than what you'd be able to get just by having the website on its own and relying on SEO just from Google as part of that aspect. And so being on Amazon can be a huge benefit and provide a lot more volume than you would normally get otherwise. Now, being on Amazon, as many of you guys know, also has a lot of cons along with it. Just because of the fact that one, you're competing against many other people on the same marketplace. So often if you're uploading products, the only way that you're going to get the buy now button is if you have the cheapest price plus shipping. And so that's the only way you're going to be listed first on the marketplace. Amazon has been known to compete directly with a lot of their merchants, and so they release their own, Amazon brand of, dog treats, or Amazon brand of clothing, or they have many of these different things across the board, which they're competing directly with many of their merchants. And finally, they do manipulate search results in some ways, and so they'll put their cereal first above Rice Krispies when you search for it. So they do have some self-serving kind of search results as well on top of that. So they can provide a lot of value, but they also can kind of detract in the fact of, I am putting my products on Amazon, and I might not get a lot of the value out of it that I would see as necessary. Chris, I know you have a good story about one of your friends who puts things on Amazon and actually uses kind of a clever strategy related to what they put on and what they don't.
Yeah, when thinking about this, really thinking about all of these different points of presence as part of a cohesive strategy is super important. So you've got your website, which is the hub of all of these different marketplaces. And then you also have Amazon, Etsy, may have Walmart or Jet or those types of things as well. And really understanding what is the goal of each of those points of presence for this network of places where customers can find the product and search and discover it. So Amazon is great for discovery. Half of searches or so for products are going to be starting there, and so that is a great place to get awareness for a product. Have some folks I know that have been running a really, really interesting company for about 8 or 10 years now called Outlaw Soaps, and they started out doing kind of novelty things. They had a bar of soap that was shaped like a slab of bacon, same coloring, same texture and stuff. Didn't smell like bacon, but it was really, really cool, and that kind of got them some notice. And then they expanded into this whole other line of sort of outlaw lifestyle types of brands around their soap, and you can get things that are like, smell like whiskey or gunpowder or the like. And what they discovered was they needed to go and partner with folks like Amazon and Whole Foods and such to get the distribution and get the volume. Anything that they could just do on their site wasn't going to be able to get to the business goals that they were trying to achieve for this this empire they're in the process of building. And so what they ended up doing was, for things that were much more commoditized and such, those things they put up on Amazon. And again, it's not a loss leader per se, but it's a way to get introduced to a wider audience than they would have if they were just 100% relying on any other part of that network of points of presence. The benefit of doing that is they do get a lot more reach, a lot more exposure. Amazon handles all of the shipping and stuff. At the same time, they pay about 40% of their margin in order to have the privilege of doing that. So what they've done is they will go out and they'll put the really easy to notice, very, very kind of commodity-ish types of things out on Amazon. They'll ship those, but they're also going to be getting people to sign up for their newsletter. And there are certain things that on their website that are exclusive. So their really unique products are only on the website. Things like their subscription service, which is this beautiful recurring revenue model, is only offered through their website and such. And so they've really managed to dial in and optimize this business for using the right tools in the right place for the right business goals, and in doing so enable them to balance the the benefits they get off of working with a third-party marketplace like this, where the competition really does try to drive margins to zero, versus using that as a way to start the relationship. And then once they have the relationship started, then their their website really becomes the hub of the relationship between themselves and their customers. So it's a really delicate and really thoughtful way to approach this challenging strategy.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Chris. It's a good story. You know, Amazon, it's definitely a race to the bottom a lot of times in terms of price and the volume play that you're getting into. And so positioning yourselves as our unique products go on our own website and are controlled by our own experience, I think is a smart positioning from a business perspective. It's a great story. And finally, on the last topic, Chris, I know you wanted to cover a few things related to just in general search engine marketing, paid advertising, some of the keyword optimization you can do in relationship to that.
Yeah, on the Google SERP side of things, again, we're now seeing, especially for things that are e-commerce oriented, definitely going to see a ton of ads on those pages. So even if you have a really awesome organic page, there may be times where you want to augment that with some paid search as well. And so a lot of the same thought process around search engine optimization for organic can be applied to SEM, the search engine marketing side of things as well. And so knowing what are people searching for, how much does it cost to get a click for any of those, if you have the opportunity to be in the first 4 links on the page, those ads, versus down the page, and especially on mobile now, I've seen some studies where people will need to scroll down 1,000, 1,500, sometimes 2,000 pixels on mobile before they actually get to the first organic search result because of ads and some of the other units that Google is putting in there. And so don't discount, if you are playing in this search world, some of the paid things that you might need to use to augment some of the things that you're doing on the organic side, because organic obviously is the best thing if you can get there and get the clicks. Sometimes though, again, looking at the situation on a product by product level, there may be some tactical cases where you do want to use a little bit of search engine marketing budget and try and get some of those spots on the SERP as well. Additionally, you may test some different things. You may try a bunch of different ad copy just to see what's working. Maybe try 10 or 15 different versions of the headline, throw all those ads up there, and let the Google robots optimize which one is the one that people are really clicking on, and then double or triple or quadruple down on the spend for that one. We've got all of these other tools that are out there right now, and when you do have the Googles and the Amazons who are doing this optimization using machine learning and other techniques all of the time, take advantage of that. There is no downside in throwing 10 or 20 or 100 different ads at the robots that are combinations of slightly different headlines and first lines and second lines and images and calls to action and such, and just see which ones work. And from there, you can then, once you have that insight, those are the ones that you can lean into a little bit more heavily. And so really just trying to overemphasize that in addition to organic, you need to to be thinking about some of these other parts of search as well, because they all kind of fit together, and all of the platforms in which we're working are also trying to optimize for their own best interests. And so making sure to take that into account as well.
Absolutely, Chris. And like you're saying, the SEO has many different sides to it. You have the external side of I need to optimize for Google, I need to optimize for an outside platform. You also do want to also consider optimizing for your on-site search as well. This is also a key strategy to make sure that you know what's being searched for on your website, and you can optimize your on-site strategy too. So most e-commerce stores today have a search function as part of that. And often people will search and not find exactly what they're looking for. So it's very important for you as a site owner or someone who's optimizing the site on behalf of their clients to track and be knowledgeable about what is being searched for on the website. What's nice about this is since it's on the site, you have more control over what type of tracking and what type of information is being done. And so you want to make sure that you do track the searches that are done on your website, and you should be looking at this on a monthly or weekly basis and saying, great, I had 100 searches last week. I see that 5 of these searches didn't return a relevant result, and I want to change what's actually showing up in the search results to make sure that I'm optimizing for that keyword. Sometimes that means changing, the search engine you're using or the search tool you're using on the website, or sometimes that means actually changing the products to reflect what are actually being searched for by visitors to your website directly. So optimizing that on search process is going to be key for long-term kind of strategy and just on-site optimization directly.
Yeah, this is a good place for inspiration as well. So you're optimizing the products that you already have. If you start seeing searches in those logs for new types of products, different variations, different colors, different sizes, those are all things to take into account as well, because they can help sort of plan out what are some future directions you might be able to take the products as well.
Yeah, it's a great point, Chris. Absolutely. So we talked about the on-site search. We want to keep on that topic of on-site optimization here a little bit, and talk about some of these best practices you can implement within the e-commerce store or within the website directly. So one is implementing a Google shopping feed. Late last month, Google made it so that anyone can go and submit the Google shopping feed, or sorry, your feed into Google Shopping. And what that means is Google will look at your feed and understand what products you're offering, what the price of that is, if it's in stock, if there's ratings, anything related to that, and that'll now become part of the Google Shopping network. So if somebody searches Google Shopping, you will be part of that list. That also feeds into the organic search results as well. So this was, I think it was April 22nd that they announced that this is free. And so all that takes is, taking your feed and putting that into setting up a Google Shopping account and putting that in. In the past, you actually had to go and pay for a shopping campaign, and only then could you use the feed. But now it's free and kind of more open for anyone to use. And so if you're using a Duda store, we generate this automatically, and you can optimize that. If you're using an outside site, you want to make sure that they have that option to get that done. I think many tools do. Next on my list here is Schema. Schema is just going to help also search engines understand the product itself. So Schema, they have what's called product schema, and you put that on the actual product pages, which tells search engines, here's the price, here's the availability, here's information about weight and aggregate reviews and things like that. And search engines will often populate that information up into their search results. So Google does this directly. If they find Schema on the product result page or on the search result page, they'll actually pull in the price and put it on the page itself. And so this is it's not that hard to be done, and it's a good optimization strategy to do on top of your website.
Yeah,
Great.
and when you're looking at getting all these pages set up, again, there's an aspect around research that you want to really, really focus on. It is some of the things that we had talked about earlier, knowing the competition, knowing the search volume and such, and then also thinking about things over time. So one of the things that we've seen people do that is sometimes kind of get them in trouble, or at least less optimal than they could be, is changing the URLs on their site. The things that show up in the search results oftentimes take a while to build up. It might take weeks, might take months sometimes to bubble up. And every time a URL changes, that URL basically is starting again from ground zero. So once you have a sort of a taxonomy set up, stick with it. Also, I've seen people do things like, best handbag for 2020. That could be a great title. Don't put that in the URL though. Just have best handbag, or something a little bit better than that. But don't put things that will limit that to a particular point in time, because in 2021 or beyond, that URL will start to drop down. It's okay to do that in the title and really disconnect the title from the URL itself, and make sure that URL is something that's going to be evergreen and permanent and valid and relevant out into the future.
Absolutely, and that same recommendation applies for when products are out of stock as well. If you sell out of something, don't take the product page down. Make it available, but note on the product page that, hey, this is we're out of stock, and maybe even add in some information about when you expect it to be back in stock as well, if you know that. Only take the product page down if you're not going to be selling it anymore.
Yeah, and once you're on the page, there are really a couple of things to think about. Imagery is critical. It is super, super, super important, both on the page, making sure that it is something that people are going to be interested in. It's showing the offering in its best light. These things get pushed out into a lot of the different search engines as well, and get picked up in Google image search and other places. So again, understanding where images can help you, or if they are working against you, look at what the competition is doing. Make sure that the images are clear, not pixelated. All of our smartphones now really do have the capabilities, even if we're doing this, at home, shooting these things ourselves. Make sure you've got good lighting. If you can, spend a couple of bucks to get a light box if you're doing product shots, or set up an environment that it works. Learn how to use autofocus and things like that on the smartphone that you probably have in your pocket right now. You can get really, really professional looking things, even if you're doing it yourself, or if your customers are doing it themselves. Making sure that those things are in there. Also, while Duda does a lot of the heavy lifting to make sure that images are optimized and compressed with respect to file sizes and the like, some other platforms are not. So if you are using something else, make sure that those images, file size wise, are compressed and shrunk down without losing quality, because those will lighten up the overall size of the pages that have to go over the wire. Smaller pages load faster. Faster loading pages often will rank better. And so really thinking about imagery, both from an aesthetic perspective, think about it from a conversion perspective, also think about it from an SEO perspective, because it can introduce a lot of things into the page, again, especially around page size and page speed indirectly, that can either help or hurt the results in the search.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. And let's actually dive into an example that we have. I'm going to jump to the next slide, where we have some kind of do's and don'ts that reflect this. So these are two different stores, both of them from Duda. And you can see the one on the left has really high quality imagery. It's really optimized for each one of these. And so The one on the right, you only have one image, and it's a pretty generic image with not great lighting and not a lot of context related to it. So we wanted to highlight kind of some of these best practices, and images are definitely the one thing, probably the most important thing you're going to put on the product page, but you do need to consider the other things that are around it. So in this case, on the left, I'm going to go to the next slide, or go here to this slide, where we have a lot of context about what I'm purchasing, right? I'm purchasing a very specific pastel flower. I have a lot of information on the page about delivery date, when it's going to be picked up, notes I want to put on the card, different things for that flower shop of what they need to know to be delivered. But when you put that on the page, you're also providing a lot of context to somebody visiting the page in terms of, oh, these are my different options. They're thinking through the entire process in terms of selecting the right product, selecting the right sizes, and then finally through to the delivery of it, making sure that all of those details are clear and presented on the page. They also do have a solid description. It's hard to read in this example, but they do tell you things about the flowers in terms of the quality and how they're grown, and how they're kind of put together and arranged. They're providing a lot of context in relationship to that. If I go back a step here, we see this also at Duda quite a lot, where all I'm having is like the three main things on the page here, right? I have an image, I have a name, and I have a price. I might also have like a text field that's unclear as to what size I'd be able to put in. So making sure that you're looking at the individual product pages and providing the right context back to the site visitor is very important from an optimization perspective for each one of these product pages.
Yeah, I mean, what you're ultimately doing is you're trying to make it really, really, really easy for someone to buy. And on one hand, that means all the technical setup is done correctly and they're finding the page, but then also when they get there, making sure that you're giving them the information they need to make that decision, to have the confidence that, yep, I'm doing the right thing. I'm working with somebody who is reputable, and I can put in my credit card and not worry about it.
Absolutely. And that brings us to our final topic for today, which is measuring success. And this one is definitely a best practice for not only e-commerce, but just your website in general. With e-commerce though, what you want to make sure you're measuring and you're setting up from a reporting perspective is you're really measuring that full funnel. And you're looking at, great, how many people are seeing me in search results? How many people are clicking through to my website or my individual product page? How many people are adding it to cart? And finally, how many people are actually purchasing, and seeing and trying to optimize every single step of that funnel. You probably want to try and do this across every single channel that you have, and probably for every product that you have as well. So making sure that we're setting up each one of these independently is going to be critical for each one. So one quick piece of advice that I have is set up what's called Google eCommerce Analytics. So inside of your Google Analytics, there's a very specific e-commerce option which you need to enable. It's not enabled by default. And make sure that your store is set up to do that tracking, because Google will optimize, Google will automatically report on a lot of these funnels inside of Google Analytics. So it's a very cool tool to use and optimize. Duda has integrated with it, so the e-commerce store automatically tracks this, but you do need to enable it. It's a simple free tool to do that. But the same goes if you're advertising on Facebook or if you're advertising on Instagram. You want to make sure you set up those also tracking parameters, so Facebook or Instagram or any of these other channels can also reflect the right analytics and the right reporting that's related to it.
Yeah, and this is an iterative process. It is not going to be 100% optimized out of the gate, and so build in really the muscle and the process and the concept of This is a test and learn and improve and iterate way of getting to success. You're going to go out, you're going to do the first things, use that as the baseline, and then start to optimize. Even if it's just a simple spreadsheet where you're writing down all the different things you're testing and tweaking, make sure that you are continually iterating, and you'll see in a quarter or two or in a year the differences that various things can make. And also to Russ's first point, really understanding where in the funnel things give you the most leverage. Is it trying to get more people to the page? Is it optimizing conversions? Is it trying to test different types of things to get more interaction on a particular page? These are all things that that fit into that, and that necessity to have the instrumentation set up, have your dashboard set up, things like Google Analytics. Google also has things like Google Data Studio, which can pull from GA as well as Search Console and a bunch of other data sources as well. And it's sort of a combination between Google Analytics and PowerPoint, can let you visualize the results and the types of outcomes that you're trying to drive really, really easily, and it's a great tool in the toolbox as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. We do have a few minutes for Q&A. If you guys have some questions that you want to ask us, please go ahead and ask those in the questions box, and we'll get to those. If not, thank you again for joining and being part of this webinar. The first question I see came in from Jake, and this is probably a question for both you and I, Chris. The question is, would some of these strategies also help with SEO in general, with pages on my website? And the answer is yes. I think the answer is overwhelmingly, you wouldn't be optimizing directly for a single product, but things with like the keyword research and integrating those keywords back into a specific page on your website absolutely are going to be valuable for non-e-commerce websites too. Chris, I think you probably can chime in there as well.
Yeah, the sort of underlying concepts apply both to the e-commerce types of pages on a site as well as general pages. Some of the very, very detailed particulars, like within schema, the aspects of schema that you might use for a product page are going to be different than the aspects of schema that you might use on a standard content page. But a lot of the underlying concepts are there. Understand what you're trying to optimize for, understand what the competition is doing, do the research to look at what other folks who are already ranking well for those terms are doing. Look and make sure that you're optimizing for the right thing, as Russ was talking about at the top of the webinar. You have your terminology, but your terminology might not be what the market is using, so be aware of that. So yeah, Jake, absolutely. These are very, very standard or universal types of concepts. Some of the aspects of implementation might be a little bit unique for e-commerce versus just pure.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the one thing I would add on to what Chris is saying, looks like we lost him for a second there, is also try and look at the intent of the search. So if you're looking at a tool like Moz or Google Keyword Planner or something along those lines, think about the intent behind that search and make sure that your page answers that question. And so that thinking, just applying that same kind of concept as well is also, that's kind of talked about as like intent-based search results, or focusing on that.
Yeah, question in here, I think that's for you, Russ, is please touch upon features that are already built into the Duda platform and the best way to use them. I know you've been neck deep in e-commerce and Duda for the last number of years here, and would love your.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the strategies we touched on, there's kind of two areas I would say. One is the keyword strategy is definitely something it's a little bit more of like, it's a strategy related to the website in general, and it's not gonna, it doesn't, it kind of encompasses the entire Duda website. And so a lot of those things you want to think through just as part of building the site, and then the actual implementation is what gets done inside of Duda. So, some of the recommendations that we really made in terms of setting the URL slug, make sure you're setting the right title, make sure you're setting the description. All of those are very granular actions that you would take inside of the e-commerce product. So if you have a store with Duda, you go into the product, and there's a specific SEO tab inside of Duda that allows you to set the title and set the meta description directly there. And those are the things where you take those keywords and you just implement them inside of the product. The same thought process goes with, if you're building out a category page or a page outside of e-commerce, you just want to use the standard Duda tool set to say, great, I'm going to set my title, I'm going to set my description, I'm going to put the content inside of Duda that reflects and kind of surfaces back with these keywords. For some of the more technical things like, schema and search, we optimize a lot of this out of the box. So we implement schema automatically, and you don't really need to worry about that. It's always good to double check those things and make sure Duda is doing a good job. But we're going to try and automate as much of the technical stuff within the Duda product and within our system as possible. Great. I see there is one question from Deanza asking, for SEO on a blog post, what's a necessary amount of tags to add? And I think my answer is, you don't necessarily need to tag a blog post. I think tagging provides a little bit of context about maybe what the topic is or about what the category is, and so it can provide a little bit of information. But doing like 1 versus 5 or 7, there's no specific recommendation. It's really going to depend on the content and then what you're optimizing those things for.
Yeah, in my experience, tags are sometimes they're really useful in a couple of different ways. One is for your own organization, and so if you're trying to perhaps have a page that is a collection of a lot of blog articles that are on a single topic or related topics, then tags are really useful for doing that. And in Duda, for example, you can set up widgets that will just pull in blog posts that filter for a particular tag. They're also useful for potentially navigation as well for site visitors. But the real change over, let's call it the last 5 years or so, if you go back 5-7 years, it was relatively easy to game Google by stuffing in keywords and tags and all of these other things that were sort of the blunt instrument of language understanding. They have gotten way, way, way more sophisticated now, and especially on long form content and blog posts and the like, they're really looking for what is the best post that is going to meet the intent of the searcher. So if somebody is searching for, how to, cook a hamburger, they're going to look for the post that answers that. Or if they are looking for, if somebody is trying to search on a particular piece of information or such, they are going to look for the best post that actually meets that intent. And they have the underlying AI sophistication now that understands things like synonyms and intent and phrases. They have a newish algorithm called BERT, B-E-R-T, that really tries to deeply understand what are the subjects and objects of sentences and things like that. And so really now it is write useful information, deliver useful information, deliver comprehensive information. And again, look at what they are ranking for those terms you're trying to rank for, because they will give you a really good idea as to the depth and breadth and type and quality and presentation that they seem to think answers the question best and really meets the intent of the searcher. So don't get too caught up in things like tags or those types of things. Just make sure you're addressing the need of the searcher. Think of it, if you were searching on that thing, what's the thing that would help you really understand and get the answer you're looking for, and that'll take you down the right.
Yeah, great answer, Chris. So next question that we have here is, also I like some of the paid tools that were mentioned for keywords. Are there any that you recommend specifically? I personally don't have a strong recommendation. I think, Moz does a very good job. A lot of these tools do a very good job of giving recommendations. A lot of the Google tools that we mentioned are free. So Google Trends, Rising Retail, Keyword Planner, all of those are free tools as well that come directly from Google that are great for using. Chris, I don't know if you have a preference, but or kind of like a view on what's accurate, but that's my view.
Yeah, I've used a bunch of them, and the thing with all of the tools is there is none of them will give you the answer. And so whether you're using Moz or Ahrefs or Keywords Everywhere or SpyFu, it doesn't particularly matter. They'll all give slightly different information. What you're looking for is directionality and sort of orders of magnitude types of things. These are the tools in the toolbox, and you're sort of reading tea leaves a little bit with all of them. As Russ mentioned, a lot of the free things out there, Google Trends is a great tool to get sort of the relative direction things are going and the relative importance of various things that you're trying to compare. Google Search Console is another great one that's just included. Google Analytics, you can hook up to Search Console now and actually get a lot of the query data to flow right into GA as well. So it's less the tool. Any one of them will probably do a good enough job, and it is tracking things over time, looking for trends, throwing in a little bit of inspiration, and that will help as well. And then I saw that there was a follow-up on the tag question as well. Tags are part of SEO, and they are relatively, useful, but I would not necessarily put them in the top 10 most critical things. They can be incrementally useful, but they are definitely not part of the core. The real core is creating content, delivering content that meets the searcher's intent, and that's a much bigger and more abstract thing. And these other things like tags and schema and optimizing URLs all fit into that, but ultimately, if you have a great piece of content that's really meeting the searcher's intent, that will get you much further than trying to optimize for one particular aspect of a detail on a particular piece of content.
Absolutely. Great. So thank you, everyone. We are going to wrap up today. Thank you for joining and participating and asking some great questions and engaging with us. We will send around a recording of this webinar. We do have some upcoming webinars as well if you want to check those out on our webinar landing page. So think about registering for the next one to come through. And again, thank you very much for being part of this.
Thanks everybody for taking time out of your day. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to connecting up with you all again very soon.